Welcome to Know This Live. I'm Zincle Asamoah. The George Floyd Justice in Policing Act is a bill aimed at combating police misconduct and excessive force. It passed in the House, but is facing some pushback from Republicans in the Senate. President Biden had set the one-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd, for whom the bill is named, as a deadline for its passing. That deadline was missed, but lawmakers are still confident it can be signed into law. Joining me today is Representative Karen Bass. The Democrat from California is a sponsor of the bill and one of its lead negotiators. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, and I want to start just simply, what is the status of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act?
Well, you described it well. I mean, it was passed in the House on March 3rd, and since then it's been over in the Senate. But there have been active conversations going on, and we are hoping that the bill will be voted on in the next couple of weeks in the Senate. You probably are aware that Senator Scott has put a deadline that the bill has to pass by the end of June, and I am hopeful in every way that we will be able to meet that deadline.
And I wanted to ask about that. What makes you confident that you can reach that agreement in the next 3 weeks, given many of the contentious issues we've seen going back and forth?
Well, the quality of the dialogue that we've been having, and of course, I'm not going to go into those details publicly, but the differences are not as wide as they have been reported.
And I know that qualified immunity has been one of those contentious topics. For those unfamiliar, that protects officers from civil liability, and it's really been a sticking point in these negotiations. Are you prepared to give that up to see action and compromise?
I'm not prepared to give that up, and giving it up is not at the center of our discussion.
Can you disclose what is?
No, I will not. But I will tell you that the first part of the bill deals with accountability, and the second part of the bill is about raising the standards of policing in the United States. We have 18,000 police departments and 18,000 ways policing is handled in our communities. And it's about time that there be national standards, national protocols, national accreditation. And then the other part of the bill deals with grants to communities to begin to re envision policing. Because what has happened in our country over the last few decades is that we've cut funding in so many different ways on our safety net. And then when communities have problems, we expect the police to solve the problems. And I don't believe police officers go into law enforcement because they want to deal with addiction and mental health and domestic violence and problems that really are community based and do not necessarily need law enforcement solutions.
And I know that Senator Mitch McConnell has signaled specifically what his hesitation is, saying, for example, that removing qualified immunity will mean no one will enter law enforcement for a career. Have you seen evidence of that?
No, and I disagree with that. What I believe is that police departments around the country, not all of them, but many of them, are having trouble recruiting right now. I personally believe it's because of the image of policing in the United States and, frankly, around the world. When you see video after video of brutality, then and you have widespread disdain, why would anybody want to go to into a profession like that now? So my focus is when we reform and uplift the profession, people will join. I do not believe it is all about qualified immunity. I think when somebody is thinking about being a law enforcement officer, I don't know that qualified immunity is something that's top on their mind.
And something you brought up was this idea of community policing. I know we've seen different cities pursue this, and you mentioned that there need to be more community aspects to reform. What are some options being considered right now?
Sure. Well, what I mean by community policing is for police officers to actually have a relationship to the communities that they police. And, for example, in my district in Los Angeles, part of my district is very wealthy, predominantly white. The other part of my district is inner city, South Central Los Angeles. And one police department and the way they conduct themselves is completely different in different sides of town. So on one side of town, police are there to protect and serve, and they act as guardians. On the other side of town, they act as warriors. And so I believe that we need to have policing that is more accountable to communities, and that communities do not need to see time and time again acts take place and no one held accountable.
And of course, this bill is named after George Floyd. I know that in controversial remarks, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi thanked George Floyd for, quote, sacrificing himself. And many rightly pointed out that George Floyd was not a martyr. He did not choose to or want to die. I wonder if you or any members of the Congressional Black Caucus have spoken with Speaker Pelosi since that incident, or what your immediate reaction was to those remarks.
No, my immediate reaction was I knew exactly what she meant, which was she was hoping that his life, that he did not die in vain. And so I didn't think there was any particular reason to talk to her about that. I knew exactly what she meant, and I agree with that. I don't want his life to be a life that he lost in vain. And his daughter said that she hopes that her father is never forgotten, and I know that that's what the speaker was referring to.
And I know that you met with the Floyd family last week on the 1 year anniversary of his passing. What did they tell you they want to see done with this bill specifically?
Well, first of all, it was very difficult to see them because the date last year, last week, May 25th, is a date that is, just has them relive the pain of losing their family member every year. And so I was encouraged that that they still had faith that we would get something done, but that they were more concerned that we do something substantive rather than rush to have something symbolic just to meet a deadline.
And in that vein, I wanted to dig into an element of this bill that has to do with body cameras. I know part of the proposal would require local and state police agencies to use existing federal funds to require body cameras or police dashboard cameras. And I do know that recently in North Carolina, we saw a case where there was body camera footage, but the family and the public were only able to see a limited amount of that footage. Given that, how do you reckon with the reality that even with a comprehensive reform such as yours, there's still so much work to be done and so many gaps?
Well, you know what? You have to take a first step. And I know that the day the president signs the bill, the next day I'll be ready to go back at it again because so much more does need to be done. And you can't do everything in one bill. This bill is pretty comprehensive, but it's still not enough.
And with that, I did want to ask, what happens if this does not pass? Because that is very possible. Would you bring forth this bill again or wait for more consensus? What does that balance look like for you?
Oh, I won't concede that at all. This bill will pass. This bill will make it to President Biden's desk.
You are 100% confident of that.
I am. I
That's
mean,
great.
I know anything could happen. We could have a massive hurricane that takes over everybody's attention. Anything could happen. But I'm not going to go down the road of what if it doesn't happen because I don't have any reason at all to think that it won't happen.
Duly noted. And I know, as we said, it's been just over 1 year since Floyd's passing. And I'm glad you pointed out, right, that this is not a celebratory thing. This is mourning that the family is going to continually do year after year. So I wonder for you, how do you feel and what continues to fuel your work, given how obviously you're a sponsor of this bill and one of its lead negotiators?
Well, my responsibility is what keeps me going. I am committed to getting this job done. I've worked on these issues for many years. As a matter of fact, when I went to Mr. Floyd's memorial service in Houston, I realized the first time I started working on this issue was the year he was born, and that was 47 years ago. So, the fact that we're able to talk about this issue, that we actually are believed. I mean, this has been going on ever since Black people arrived here. But up until George Floyd's torture, people just didn't believe it was the case. People believed that Black people were exaggerating or there must have been a reason. The cop couldn't have possibly just killed someone. So, the awareness that happened because of his murder and the brutality of it, and the millions of people around the world that protested it, that's all of that is the fuel I need to get this across the finish line.
And you pointed out something powerful, which is that I believe you said you began this work the year that George Floyd was born. Given that, how do you feel in terms of progress? Have we obviously we haven't made enough because we're having this conversation, but what do you want to see? Are you encouraged? Are you despairing? Where are you?
I am encouraged. I do believe that the years before George Floyd, it was actually much worse. The years before Rodney King, it was much worse. So I do think that things have gotten better, but obviously not enough. I mean, there was the body cam footage of the two officers beating the man to death who they said had died in a car accident. So, who knows what's been going on, but at least now people have to believe us. Whereas before, when we reported these incidences, we just weren't believed.
Well, Representative Karen Bass, thank you so much for your time and your work. We'll be following it closely.
Thank you.
Yes, and thanks to everyone for watching. This has been Know This Live. I'm Zincle Esamwa.